name's Joe, and you know, I was in your seat probably about 2 months ago, looking at a video, watching a testimonial, trying to find out, is this something for me? And let me put myself in your shoes, because I didn't know that this is going to be the thing for me. And what was the deciding factor? Well, let's take a step back. I started treatment, being diagnosed in November 2015 with stage 4 melanoma. And that was one of those diagnoses that I was not expecting. And follow that was to have 28 lymph nodes removed from my right shoulder, plus one out of my posterior region, to find out that 14 of those tested positive for metastatic melanoma. So surgery, quickly had that done, recovered from that, started treatment. And you and me, we were faced with, well, what do we do? We can listen to Western medicine, and Western medicine says you have chemotherapy and you have radiation. And those were the only two options given to me besides surgery. And then my friends said, no, don't do that. Check alternative therapies. So I was introduced to a series called Truth About Cancer. And maybe you have heard about it, maybe you haven't. I highly recommend that you check it out. And learned a lot of things. And it was amazing how much information came from that series that then formulated my next decision on what treatment to follow. And so I opted to go a viral therapy, which was called Rigver. And Rigver was supposed to be specifically targeted for melanoma cancer. And it was about 80% effective. So I'm like, hey, can't go wrong with that. So I moved forward on that treatment and started January 5th. I received my first treatment. And I'm taking my weekly doses as I was instructed to do. And I took my next PET scan expecting to have a nice clean result, and found out that I had 12 new tumors. That's not something I was expecting. And I can tell you, it took me for a loop, because I'm like, well, what do I do now? You know, there was a sense of panic. There was a sense of, if I don't do something that Western medicine has told me to do, maybe I've run out of time. And I've just squandered the one opportunity that I had to turn this thing around. So I quickly started doing more research into other treatments, not alternative treatments, but other treatments, Western medicine. And I was introduced to, and I was originally introduced to these drugs originally in the beginning of this, which was Yervoy, Opdivo, and Keytruda. The combination of Yervoy and Opdivo were going to be the ones that were the most toxic, yet had the most promise to stopping the cancer. And they said they had about a 60% success rate with those drugs. But the toxicity, it was very extreme, and it could lung damage, liver damage, leukemia, lupus, and a whole variety of other kinds of diseases could be a side effect from that treatment. So I didn't want to go there. And then I found out about another one, which is called Keytruda. And I did some research online, and basically people were saying that it was kind of like a walk in the park and no big deal. And some people were even questioning, did they even get the good stuff, because they didn't feel bad. And so 24 hours before I was scheduled to take my first dose of Keytruda, I get a phone call from a friend. It says, hey, did you talk to so-and-so about this doctor? I couldn't pronounce the doctor's name, Dr.Nezami. And they said, he's got a special patent treatment, and you should check this out. If you were like me, you've probably received so many different recommendations, emails, check this out, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I'm like, I don't want another one. I've made my mind up. I'm going in, I'm going to have the Keytruda, and we'll be done with it, and then get this cancer out of my body. But there was something about the way that call came through to me, and it's like, this is a special patented treatment, and this man is receiving a great deal of success with this treatment. And it's called MTET, Multi-Molecular Targeted Epigenetic Therapy. It's a mouthful. And I'm like, well, it's worth a phone call. So that same day, again, 24 hours before I'm scheduled to receive my first dose of Keytruda, I made a phone call to Dr. Nezami. And he spent about 10-15 minutes talking with me. And I just kind of gave him an update of where I was at and what I was planning to do. And by this time I had integrated my best between medical, Western medicine and alternative medicine. So I was doing high dose IV vitamin C, I was on a ton of supplements, minerals, vitamins. You know, I was doing all the things. I cut sugar out of my diet, only eating organic, non-GMO, grass-fed, free-range chicken. I mean, I'm doing all of the things that I know that I can possibly do to turn this thing around. And Dr. Nezami says to me, I said, well, I'm going to do Keytruda tomorrow, and today I'm going to do a high-dose IV vitamin C. And he says, don't do those things. And I'm like, what you talking about? He says, I don't want you to do those things. And he says, let me put it to you this way. If I treat you, then I'm the only doctor that's going to be treating you. And I'm like, that's a pretty bold statement. He says, well, I can tell you more about it when I meet you in person. So I was scheduled that afternoon to receive high-dose IV vitamin C, 50 grams. I called him up and said, I won't be there today. And then the following day, I was supposed to receive Keytruda. I called him up and said, I won't be there today. Rather, I was here in Dr. Nezami's office. My girlfriend and I were sitting there talking to him, telling him about our concerns. And you see, one of the things that I was taught in the beginning of this journey was that I need to have a team of doctors. So I had an oncologist, I had a melanoma specialist, I had a rigor specialist, I had a wellness doctor, I had a coach. All these people were instructing me and helping me. But the thing is, outside really only one of them, none of them talked to the other doctors. So it was all me in the middle trying to make the decision. Dr. Nezami sits across from me and he says to me, he says, let me be the doctor. Let me do for you what you can't do for yourself. He says, let me make these decisions for you. That's what I'm paid the big bucks to do here. And I go, you know, it's kind of like, how can you be so confident? He says, because I know what I can do. He said, I said, so give me an idea. How successful are you? He says, I have between a 90 to 95% success rate in treating my patients. And he says, the thing is, the patients that I treat here aren't the patients that have come in for the first time they get a diagnosis of cancer. He says, I get the late stage 4 patients, the patients that the oncologist says, we've done everything modern medicine can do for you, and the only alternative from here is hospice, which is basically signing your death warrant. And he says, those are the patients I get. And he said, I'm in a unique situation because I didn't do any of those treatments, albeit my cancer has spread, but it hasn't gone uncontrollable like other people that have come in here. One friend of mine, he's got brain cancer along with, well, he has melanoma, but he's got it in his brain, he's got it in his lungs, his liver, it's wrapping around his bronchial tubes, it's in his vertebrae. And he was diagnosed about the same time as I was, but we became friends through this process. And you know, I say the same thing, there go I, but if not by the grace of God. I don't know why my treatment didn't go crazy like his did, but it did. And so, you know, those are the kinds of people that come here. And you'll see them. You know, you might look at my hair and you say, well, why is your hair so short? That was a personal preference thing. I got this PICC line put in 2 weeks ago, and they told me I got to keep it dry and keep it from getting wet. So it was hard to wash my hair and keep my PICC line dry. So I'm like, you know, I'm going to simplify things. I'm going to get my hair to look like Mario's over there. So I had it all shaved off the other day. So this isn't chemo and this isn't the treatment. This is just my personal preference. And trust me, the hassle-free hair works a lot better. But you know, if there's anything I can say to you to really encourage you to make that decision and pick up that phone and make that phone call is, the first thing is, what do you got to lose? It's a phone call. You know, you're on a journey. I was on a journey. I'm still on that journey. I haven't turned the corner yet. This is my 18th treatment today. And we're seeing results. but we're still waiting for the second results to come back from the treatment. So there's a little bit of hurry up and waiting, but the good news is you're not waiting 6 months, you're not waiting 3 months. You're waiting maybe 2 weeks for information to come back for you to help you understand what needs to be done and what needs to be corrected. And that's the beauty about Dr. Nezami, is his is an integrated approach. He takes the best that Western medicine has to offer, plus the best of his patented therapy, which are high dose nutrients that he injects, as you can see, through IV. And he integrates those as opposed to them being just one thing or the other. And then when he gets test results back, he looks at it and says, okay, this is what we need to tweak. And then he makes those adjustments, as opposed to waiting 3 months later down the road and finding out you have new tumors. You know, so I got some results back yesterday, and they said that I'm moving in the right direction. One number that started out as 238 is down to 216. But I had one number that was at a 3 is up to a 7. Well, that's bad, you know, so we need to change that back around. But the thing is Dr. Nezami is on top of this stuff. And I trust what he's saying, and I trust what he's doing. I believe in him. And the other thing you'll find out about Dr. Nezami is that he is not like the rest of the doctors that you're going to talk to. Number one, he's extremely knowledgeable. I wish I had a degree in molecular biology so I could understand most of the things that he says. But he tries to explain it to me in layman's terms, best that I can understand. The other thing you're going to find out about him is he has an extremely gracious bedside manner. He is very attentive to his patients. He sits down for, 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time to just talk with you and understand where you're at, what you're going through, how you feel. And he's not just interested in the medical side, he is also interested in you as a person and understanding what your emotional needs are. And there's times where, we'll just close the door and we'll just kind of have a heart-to-heart. And he's good with that. So, those are the things that I would encourage you about making that decision to come here and receive treatment by Dr. Nezami. There's something else that I've learned about through this journey, and I'm actually going to share it with you by way of a song, and it goes like this. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown.